Thanks for joining me today. I'm Pat Kiernan at patspapers.com. We choose the most interesting U.S. newspaper stories for you each weekday. Here's our top story today. Bold seems to be the key word on President Obama's budget plan. The Washington Post calling it a bold shift that would create new investments in health care, energy independence, and education by raising taxes for some Americans. Bold is the headline on an analysis in the New York Times from David Leonhardt, who writes, "More than anything else, these proposals seek to reverse the rapid increase in economic inequality over the last 30 years. Analysis by David Balls in the Post looks at the big risk President Obama has taken in proposing a budget with an eye-popping $3.6 trillion price tag after 3 decades of smaller government policy. We meet the man behind the budget, Office of Management and Budget Director Peter Orszag. He is self-described as a super nerd. The story says he knows the numbers and knows how to make deals. The New York Post focuses on the higher taxes for wealthy Americans with the headline, "Pay Up America." The opening line of this story says the change Barack Obama talked about in his campaign appears to have been a hell of a big chunk of change. The Wall Street Journal offers a caution on big government. The editorial says President Obama is attempting to put government in such a dominant position that its power can never be rolled back. USA Today puts the scope of the proposals into some perspective. The chart on page 1 tracks the size of deficits starting with the Reagan years. One analyst at the Brookings Institution says the budget is a clear indication of how much things have changed in Washington. The differences between the Bush budgets and this one, he says, are night and day. There are local budget reaction stories in papers across the country. Notable in the Dallas Morning News, which says oil country is walloped, giving up $31.5 billion in tax breaks. The paper also says it's not just big oil that takes a hit, but small oil producers too. The Houston Chronicle says there's a double hit there. It's a blow to the oil industry and the space program. The paper says it is a hit for 2 pillars of the Houston economy. Perhaps stating the obvious, the story says it is very clear now that there's no longer a Texan in the White House. Goodbye, Colorado. That's the final headline for the Rocky Mountain News. The 150-year-old paper pulled back the image of its first edition to make up the front page of its final edition. The owners at the E.W. Scripps Company could not find a buyer for the newspaper as they had hoped yesterday. They said that the paper would be published for the final time today. The farewell message on the front page says, "We part in sorrow because we know so much lies ahead that will be worth telling, and we will not be there to do so." Well, this does make it easier for the Denver Post business, but it was a respectful front page story about the decline of the competition. Denver's mayor is quoted. He said, "To not have the Rocky Mountain News is like thinking the sun is not going to come up." Seattle's Eddie Bauer has some new tricks up its sleeves and in its pockets and in its socks. The company's struggled in the past decade to figure out what its focus is. It's got some new optimism for a line of outdoor gear described in the Seattle Post-Intelligencer this morning. That line has been tested on some of the highest mountain peaks in the world. Bam, says the Cleveland Plain dealer, 70-year-old Ellen Basinski refused to be intimidated by 4 robbers, she said. She fought them off with an Emeril Lagasse 5-quart saucepan. She had to give up her cookware to police as evidence, so the chef is sending her a new set. In the sports pages, here's USA Today. Tiger Woods didn't exactly dazzle in his return to golf after 8 months. Tim Clark of South Africa beat Woods in the Accenture match play event. It's a sign of the shifting economy in North Carolina. The second tallest building in Charlotte is under construction. It was to have been the Wachovia building when it opened, but with that bank being absorbed by Wells Fargo and other big local companies stepping in, the building will be renamed for Duke Energy. Gossip on page 2 of the New York Daily News. A marriage last night in Los Angeles. The supermodel and the NFL star Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen were married last night in what's described here as an intimate ceremony. And Jerry Seinfeld says marriage is a gold mine of comedy. The New York Times among the papers with details of Jerry Seinfeld's new program coming to NBC. He will not be on camera. He's going to be the producer of a reality show about quarrels between married couples. It is not intended as a serious counseling program. Instead, it'll be a series that has fun with the ups and downs of married life. Seinfeld says it's reality TV's answer to the comedy on The Honeymooners. That's all the time we've got for today. We try to keep it to just the good stuff so we don't waste too much of your time. Glad you could be with us today and hope you can do it again tomorrow. I'm Pat Kiernan. See you next time.